So here we go into Ephesians 5, and it starts off with such awesome verses. And then, as we read, I got stuck on a phrase that had 3 words on it, and I wound up diving deep in there and breaking it down. So that's what we're going to focus on today. So to start, I'm just going to read the first 2 verses. It says, "Imitate God, therefore, in everything you do, because you are his dear children. Live a life filled with love, following the example of Christ. He loved us and offered himself as a sacrifice, a pleasing aroma to God." I feel like that's so self-explanatory, and we could just stop there and meditate on that for weeks, I feel like. But yeah, also, if you want to go into First John, when you read First John, in its entirety, there's a lot of things there, but one of the overarching themes there is that God is love, and as his children, we love too. Because as his children, right, we imitate him. We naturally imitate our parents because that's what we're around all the time, whether you like it or not, unless you're intentionally trying to be different. So the question here becomes, are you trying to be different than God, or are you trying to imitate God because he is your father and you know what he's like because you're around him all the time? And here it says, live a life filled with love, following the example of Christ. And basically what it's talking about here is Christ loved us and he gave himself for us. He sacrificed himself. That's what I'm saying. We could literally just sit here and stay here. There's just so much there. And if you want to, you can just sit there and stay there. Because then it kind of goes into what types of things don't look like God, right? So it talks about sexual immorality and purity, greed. And if you read, for example, the Message translation, I have it here, it says it in different ways that may be more relevant to you and may make more sense. Be careful with the way you talk. Make sure that you're not being immoral or greedy. A greedy person is an idolater. Don't covet the things of this world. So it talks about that, right? Then it says, "For once you were full of darkness, but now you have light from the Lord. So live as people of light. For the light within you produces only what is good, what is right, and what is true." So remember how I'm always saying the Bible defines the Bible. So here we see that it's telling us, let us be people of light. And then it goes on to describe what that light from within, what it looks like. So it looks like what's good, what's right, and what's true. And the reason I got stuck here is I got stuck on the word right. And I'm going to explain why. And then I dove into good and true as well. But the reason I got stuck on the word right is because in our culture today, everyone's so worried about right and wrong, right? I want to be on the right side. I don't want to be on the wrong side. And even within Christianity, within this world, we're always like, this is right, that's wrong. This is right, that's wrong. This is right, that's wrong. And I understand that because I live in that way too. I think it's just natural for us, right? We want to make sure we're going down the right road. However, I want us to take us back all the way to creation, to the creation story, and where we see actually to the story where Adam and Eve eat of the tree of good and evil. There was the tree of life that they could have eaten from. There was tons of other trees, but they chose to eat of the tree of good and evil. And they were led to eat of the tree of good and evil, even though God had advised them not to do this. So that's a whole deep dive. Like I said, I've studied this story for years, okay? We can go into a whole other lesson. What I want to say is that people are still eating from the tree of good and evil instead of the tree of life. The tree of life is what gives us life. But people are eating of the tree of good and evil till today. And even many Christians, they're not doing it with evil intention, but they're doing it. And it distracts us from the life. It distracts us, like it makes us more concerned with knowing than with living. And that's so, like, again, we're going to keep these short so I can go so deep into this. And if you want me to, just put it in the comments and say, go deeper. And I'll do a video going deeper into this. But let's just keep it simple. So let me give you guys the breakdown. Okay. Right. Okay. Whenever we see the word right, especially when Paul is using it, it's not using it in the sense of right and wrong. It's using it in the sense of righteousness and holiness. So don't think of righteousness as I'm behaving right or wrong. It's a state of being, okay? And it's tied to holiness, okay? And I know that we can look at holiness and say, well, holiness is about right and wrong, but it's not. It's a state of being, again, deeper. So, but also I want you to look at it as it's living with God's character, okay? Who is God? We're made in the image of God. So being right is living in the image that God has created us in, and then right relationship with God. So whenever I personally see that word right or even righteous, I'm always thinking, am I in right relationship with God? Okay, so now let's break down these 3 words because we're almost up on time. Goodness. We want to be good. Good is about how we treat people. It's about generosity and active kindness. So that's how I want you to think about being good. I don't want you to think about good versus bad, right? Evil versus right, good, wrong. Like, no, let's stop that. Let's talk about it from the concept of who we are. So goodness is about being good, is about being generous and actively kind. Being right is about being in right relationship with God and living out his character. And truth is what governs our hearts and our words. Truth is, did I write notes here? Hold on. I feel like I had written notes and then I may not have written it. Okay. So truth is based on being honest, and being in God's truth, like living in God's truth. So there's reality, right? And then there's our belief and what's true. So, like, I believe the things God taught and Jesus taught. I believe in the promises of Jesus. Do I always see them lived out in my life? No, not always, right? So that's my reality. My reality is I'm going through this thing. I'm not experiencing, peace that surpasses understanding. I'm not experiencing joy. These are all things that Jesus promised. Okay, that's your reality. That's okay. It's okay to admit that. But then we also have the truth. It's not but. And we also have the truth of God's word. And Jesus said that we would have peace that surpasses understanding regardless of the circumstance and the trials and the tribulations. We would have unspeakable joy. That's the truth. Both things can live at the same time. And my life's objective is to bring those things closer and closer together, to learn God, have my right relationship with God, so that my reality and God's truth start to look more and more alike. And I can tell you, like, I have not arrived in that place where they're one, but I'm a lot closer than I once was. And that's what I pray for you, that you may know what your reality is, know what God's truth is, and live in goodness, righteousness, and truth, so that you can start to close the gap of your reality and God's truth. Love you guys. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.